So, thinking about a career in bacteriology, huh? Gotta say, pretty cool choice. Like, it's a whole hidden world, right? And we're lucky enough to have this RoleCatcher guide to walk us through it. It really breaks down what being a bacteriology technician is all about.
Yeah, it's really comprehensive. Lots of good stuff in here.
It really jumps right in, talking about the day-to-day stuff. I was actually surprised to learn it's not all microscopes and petri dishes. We're talking some serious high-tech equipment. Have you worked with a flow cytometer before? Or how about a polymerase chain reaction machine?
Oh, yeah, those are pretty standard for a bacteriology technician these days. I mean, they can do some amazing analysis, really precise stuff, way beyond what we could do even a few years ago.
Wow, yeah. It sounds really hands-on, too. Like, the guide mentions collecting data, running experiments, even compiling reports. The kind of stuff that could lead to big scientific breakthroughs. It's not just about analyzing, it's about actually participating in the research.
Absolutely, and accuracy is key. The guide really stresses how important it is to follow those strict protocols. One tiny error could throw off a whole project.
Right, of course, you're dealing with living organisms, and we all know how predictable those can be.
Exactly.
Speaking of unpredictable, what about those late-night lab sessions we see in all the movies? Is that a real thing, or is that just Hollywood?
Well, let's just say dedication is definitely important in this line of work. It might not be quite as dramatic as they show it in the movies, but there are times you got to put in the extra hours, especially when you're onto something really exciting.
Yeah, that's when it gets really interesting, right? This RoleCatcher guide, it also talks about how the field is always changing, always new tech coming out. They even use the phrase cutting edge, which, I gotta admit, always gets me a little excited.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's definitely not a field that ever gets boring. There's always something new to learn, new technologies emerging. It's pretty exciting. It really does sound it. Okay, so let's switch gears just a bit and talk about, the pros and cons. You always like to keep things real, so.
Of course, yeah, it's important to have a balanced view of any career, right? And this one's no different.
So we talked about the work itself, but what about, like, the long game? What does a career in bacteriology actually look like, long term?
Well, that's what I think is really great about this RoleCatcher guide. It actually lays out the different career stages really clearly.
Yeah, it does. It's really cool. You don't just stay a technician forever, right? There's potential to move up, lead research teams, even publish your own stuff.
Yeah.
That's got to be rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a good path if you're ambitious, if you're driven. They even have this example, a profile of a senior bacteriology technician, and this person, they've had their work published in actual scientific journals. Think about that, like having other experts reading your research, influencing new discoveries. Okay, yeah, that's going straight on my vision board. And speaking of finding your niche, the guide also talks about specializations, which is cool. It's a lot more diverse than I would have thought,
It
actually.
really is, yeah. If you're into medical stuff, there's a path for that.
Hmm.
Environmental microbiology, even industrial applications, you name it. You can really, like, dive deep into a specific area that you're passionate about.
What's like the most interesting to you? I'm kind of drawn to the medical side of it all.
Oh, man. That's tough. There's so much cool stuff.
Yeah.
But the advances in medical bacteriology, it's really amazing. Developing new antibiotics, vaccines, even just understanding how bacteria play a role in different diseases.
Hmm.
That's also crucial for, the future of healthcare.
Totally. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. Say someone is listening and they're like, yep, this is it. This is the career for me. What's the job search actually look like? Because thankfully, RoleCatcher, they don't leave us hanging.
Exactly. They give some really solid advice on interview prep, even common questions they ask, which is great.
Those interview questions, though, they weren't messing around.
Yeah, they get pretty specific, which, makes sense. They
Yeah.
want to make sure you can handle whatever comes up. Like one question, it asks how you would troubleshoot a problem in the lab, a complicated one,
Oh, wow, yeah.
a real test.
Right. Yeah, like thinking on your feet.
Totally. And the guide, it stresses how important continuous learning is. Like, you can't just stop learning, you know what I mean? You got to stay up to date, especially with research and technology changing so fast.
Yeah, for sure. It's constantly evolving. So how do you even, like, where do you go to stay ahead of the game in a field like this?
Well, professional associations are great. There are conferences, scientific journals. Those are like gold mines of information. It's like a direct line to the most cutting edge research.
And this is where RoleCatcher really shines because they actually link to some of those resources, right? Like they've thought of everything.
I know, right? They really have. And on top of that, they have AI-powered interview practice and CV analysis. How cool is that?
Cool.
Talk about a confidence boost.
Seriously. It's like Having a personal career coach right in your pocket. This whole deep dive, it's really been eye-opening. We started with this microscopic world of bacteria, and now we're talking about like real career paths, real people doing this work.
Yeah, and honestly, we've just scratched the surface.
Right. That's what I love about these deep dives, though. It always leaves you wanting to learn more. Speaking of learning more, you know that thing about antibiotic resistance in the guide? That really stuck with me.
Oh yeah, it's such an important issue. As bacteria evolve, some of them, they become resistant to the antibiotics that, we use to fight infections.
And that has huge consequences for healthcare, right? Like it's not just a science problem, it's a people problem.
Exactly. It's a huge challenge, a global one, actually. But researchers, they're working hard to find solutions.
Which is why the work of bacteriology technicians is more important than ever. So here's something to think about. With this threat of antibiotic resistance growing, what role do you think these technicians will play in shaping the future of healthcare? Will they be developing new diagnostic tools, new treatments, or something totally new, something we haven't even thought of yet? It's something to consider, and it really highlights how vital these often unseen scientists are to, all of us. So keep asking those questions, and hey, who knows? Maybe you'll be the one making the next big breakthrough in bacteriology. Until next time.